Yields. Without objection, the title of Mrs. Vaughn's testimony submitted for the record has to be stricken. The wording of that title makes an accusation against the President and the Secretary that they're accomplices to crime, and we have to strike that. So without objection, the title of that testimony is stricken, and we'll move to the next question. I now recognize Mr. Magaziner for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chairman. You know, the American people want us to work together in a bipartisan way to solve the nation's problems and to strengthen our security. But instead, we are here for yet another episode of impeachment theater, the latest installment in House Republicans' plans to impeach someone, anyone, from the Biden administration. And it's disappointing. And the facts don't support it. The premise of the argument, and we all know that this is where this is headed, the premise of the argument is something like this, that Secretary Mayorkas, President Biden are breaking the law because they're not attempting to stop transnational criminal activity at the border. But unfortunately for my colleagues, the facts are not on their side. Here is just a sample of the actions that the Biden administration has taken to combat transnational criminal organizations at the border. In 2021, Secretary Mayorkas launched Operation Sentinel, a collaborative interagency effort to disrupt logistical networks of criminal organizations. Also in 2021, the administration launched Joint Task Force Alpha to enhance U.S. enforcement efforts against smuggling and trafficking groups operating in Mexico and in the Northern Triangle countries. December 2021, President Biden issued Executive Order 14060, establishing the United States Council on Transnational Organized Crime. The executive order outlined a policy for the United States to combat TCOs and established a council to monitor the production and implementation of coordinated strategic plans to do just that. Last year, Congress passed and President Biden signed legislation to increase funding for border security, for better technology at points of entry, for more Border Patrol agents. And in almost every case, our Republican colleagues who were there last year voted against this legislation. This year, the Biden administration launched Operation Blue Lotus and Operation Four Horsemen, interagency surges of operations to seize narcotics, investigate crimes, and investigate dangerous individuals associated with TCOs. In just 2 months, those operations seized nearly 10,000 pounds of fentanyl and more than 10,000 pounds of other narcotics like cocaine and methamphetamines. In the last week alone, Operation Blue Lotus arrested 284 people on fentanyl charges. I can keep going. Secretary Mayorkas launched Operation Artemis to target precursor chemicals, pill presses and parts, and finished substances involved in fentanyl. Secretary of State Blinken, who some of our colleagues are also trying to impeach, organized a ministerial meeting with more than 80 countries to launch a global coalition to address synthetic drug threats, a worldwide effort led by the United States to disrupt fentanyl supply chains. In April, the Biden administration's Justice Department announced charges against 28 Sinaloa cartel leaders. And of course, most importantly, since the expiration of Donald Trump's Title 42 policy, illegal border crossings are down more than 50%. That is on President Biden's watch. So listen, we can all have our own opinions about whether the administration is doing a good job or not. Everybody is entitled to those opinions. But if your core argument is that the Biden administration is breaking the law by not trying to disrupt TCOs, the facts don't support it. And we're going to keep having this debate apparently for months to come, but that is the central point. And here's what it all boils down to. Even though the president and his administration have taken numerous actions to address the challenges at the border, detaining criminals, seizing drugs, some of our colleagues are just hell-bent on impeaching a cabinet secretary for the first time in 150 years. And for some, this has been the plan all along. House Republicans first introduced articles of impeachment against Secretary Mayorkas 2 years ago, when the guy had only been in office for a couple months. They have been gushing to their donors about impeachment behind closed doors before they even took control of the House and before any of these investigations even began, even though there's no legal basis. So, look, the American people want us to work together to secure the border on a bipartisan basis, there are things that we could be doing. We should invest in technology and personnel. We should strengthen our relationships with allies in the region who are key partners in this fight. We can reform the immigration system to make it more orderly. We can finally do something about the flow of illegal guns across the border from the United States to Mexico, which is a part of this problem that our colleagues don't ever want to talk about. But in order for us to move forward in a productive way, impeachment theater has to stop so that we can get to work for the American people. And I yield back.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize